For the teams from Concacaf that are going to the World Cup, are you feeling better or worse now after the Gold Cup?
The US, I'm feeling the same. And I know this sounds weird. I was already pessimistic and I still am. It didn't change the way I feel about it. And also, yeah, we were missing plenty of players. That
You're
plays a
telling
role.
me
But
Sebastian Berhalter did not give you faith that the United States is going to make the semis?
no, it's quite remarkable how he didn't really stand out for me, even though the media.
Mm.
Did you see how they fell for the fake Bayern rumor in the zone?
I saw Max Arfton was man of the match against Costa Rica.
No,
It
so
made the
someone
best
put a
11.
fake rumor on X, a USMNT account, as a joke that Bayern Munich was close to signing Sebastian Berhalter. And then the guy on the zone, when Bayern was playing, I think Bayern was playing Flamengo. Bayern was playing some game in the Club World Cup, and he's like, yeah, and USMNT, and Bayern is interested in USMNT midfielder Sebastian Berhalter. I was like, guys, seriously? But it's just like the
Mm-mm.
US. I guess maybe I'm a bit more concerned for the World Cup because I don't know if Pochettino has grown attached to some of the guys that were in the Gold Cup. So that can be concerning. Like Ajiman starting pretty much every game and playing so many minutes is concerning. Even if he sees him as the third option, that is super concerning because that means we're like one injury of Balogun or Pepe away from Ajiman being the backup. Like, no, I'm sorry. That's
Yeah,
not going to.
yeah,
Sebastian Berhalter played a lot. Is he going to want him because of the grit? He did bring grit. He lacked everywhere else, but he brought grit. So
yeah.
it's a bit concerning. And Tyler Adams also didn't look as good as he used to, which is another concern. So maybe I'm a bit more concerned about the US, but it didn't change too much. I'm not very optimistic until I see some change. Now, about the other teams, Canada, Jesse Marsh usually starts flaming hot most of his jobs, and he burns out. Saw that with
Why do you think
Salzburg.
that is?
I think he runs the team to the ground. The intensity, like when you get Jesse Marsh on board, not comparing the two, but Marcelo Bielsa also had a little bit of that, where he starts his job like
For
flaming hot and
sure.
then flames out. He just takes a bit longer than Jesse. But like with Leeds, for example, Jesse Marsh, when he comes in, it's like that energy that he brings, right? But eventually, I think people catch on to his BS. Like he's just a lot of marketing, right? Nice. He's a good public speaker and all that, but he's very stubborn. He doesn't change the team. He doesn't adapt well. So he gets the team going early on, but eventually it catches on to him. And I think that's what happens with Jesse. So if I was a Canadian fan, there's two things to be said here. One, I still think he's the best option Canada could get. I still think that. I don't think they're going to get a better option, even though I thought John Herdman actually did a good job with Canada.
I agree with you, by the
Yeah,
way.
he
I
did a
agree.
good job, but I don't think they can get someone better than Jesse. But I would be concerned if that was Canada because I think you guys might have seen the best version of Canada last year in the Copa America. And from here forward to Jesse, it might only look worse. Now, I think Canada will get out of their group. I think all three CONCACAF teams will get out of their group. They'll be seed one. There'll be a lot of third place teams that will advance. They will be playing at home for whatever that's worth for certain teams. For Mexico to play a big role. But even for the US, when people say we're playing at home, it's like, guys, understand. I know it's the away crowd, but it's not the fact that we're playing at home. We're not really playing at home, but we're not also playing away, right? That's my point. It's
Mhm.
different to play Mexico in Houston with the American Mexico national team fans in an American environment and play
Correct.
Mexico in the Azteca. There's a difference, okay?
Absolutely.
So I think for Canada, I would be very concerned. I don't think it'll get better from here. We have to see also how Alfonso Davies comes back from an ACL injury. Will he still be good? Of course, but will be the same Alfonso Davies. And as for Mexico, I would say I'm about the same. I'm more optimistic about Mexico. Not that I care if they do well, but I'm more optimistic about Mexico than I was prior to Aguirre because Mexico looked like shit. Like it was a terrible team. But now
Right.
at least they look like a cohesive team. And it looks like a team that even when they play a superior opponent, that opponent's going to have to really work their asses off to beat Mexico, right? So
Mhm.
Mexico now is a tough team to beat. And honestly, with the players Mexico has, that's what you can expect from them. I wish the US was that, but the US clearly isn't, right? When they play a better team, the US can get trashed. Mexico now is looking more promising, not just because they won the trophy, okay, just to make that clear. It's been what we've seen over the past few months. They've been looking like a much tougher team to beat, and that might be even going a little bit into culture than the US. And Canada, I mean, Jesse Marsh flaming out, we've seen that before many times.
Yeah, I think with Mexico, I've trended up after the Gold Cup like 10 to 15%. So I'm not going to be one of these people that's like, oh, we won the Gold Cup. Like, we're making the final now. The Simpsons told us. I'm not quite on that wagon, but I do think what Aguirre's done a great job of, and where I think Mexico is now ahead of the curve with Canada and the United States, is identity. Like the team clearly has a shape and identity in a way that we're going to play, which is not very pretty, but it's effective because we can't play pretty football. And so this is why I get annoyed when I see some criticism of Mexico online, like, oh, like we're not dominating these teams. But we don't have the players to do that, though. We don't have the player. We're not Spain. I mean, Aguirre said it himself in a press conference. He's like, we're not going to play like Japan because we don't have Japan's players. So stop asking me to try to play like Japan. That's not who we are. We're going to play like Mexico because we got Mexicans out there. It's like we're going to play to our style. And so I think with the new players introduced, Marcel Ruiz looks like he's here to stay in the midfield. I don't know what you thought about him. Gilberto Mora, obviously the 16-year-old, the Mexican Pedri that I'm now seeing on Twitter, which terrifies me. Raul Jimenez keeping the form with the national team, so important up top. I am more confident now, but yeah, probably by 15%.
I think you guys will get the quinto partido because there's an extra game. So you get the 3 group stage. The first knockout is around 32. Should be able to beat them. And then you make it to the round 16. Then who knows who you'll play then. But you should be able to get the quinto partido. Well, the U.S. men's national team, it depends a lot. I'll tell you one thing, though. I did a simulation of like, obviously we don't have the teams yet, right? But I looked at who's qualifying, all of that. And the way things are going with FIFA rankings, who's qualifying to the World Cup, the U.S. and Mexico could land in a group like this. U.S. or Mexico as seed 1, Germany or Italy as a tier 2 team from Europe, Ecuador, and then like a team from Asia, like a Saudi Arabia. That's not an easy group.
No, that's hard as hell.
They could get grouped in that team, like
absolutely,
especially the U.S. So yes, I don't think they'll get grouped. I hope that FIFA will help a brother out here and just kind of like don't put us in a group like that. But because like the way the U.S. is playing right now, the U.S. does not beat or tie Germany. The U.S. does not beat or tie Ecuador. So
that's Mexico, why when everyone's like, oh, all 3 hosts are going to make it out, I'm like, well, slow down, dude. Slow down. Some of these groups could be really tough.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the FIFA rankings because that's what they use, right, for seeding. Italy and Germany are not top 8. So it kind of depends. And you got to remember that there's 3 hosts. So 3 of the 12 groups will be the seed 1. And then after that, what do you have? You have 9. So right now, Italy actually goes as a number 1 seed, but Germany doesn't. So you could very well have Germany, Ecuador, let me see, like show full rankings, Croatia, Morocco, Japan. Like you can get all these teams in your group because they're from different confederations too. So it can be a very tough group. Now, lucky for us and for everyone participating, a lot of the 3rd place teams advance. So that can help.
That's the key for us is the 3rd place teams. Because without that, I honestly think we're headed towards an incredibly embarrassing World Cup for CONCACAF.
3 hosts and just 1 goes through.
Dude, honestly, the biggest concern for me with the United States and Canada, I don't know if I feel more down on them now. I feel more down on Jesse Marsh because I think he managed the Guatemala game like shit. I mean, you have a 1-0 lead, you're down a man, and my guy's got his players out there pressing. It just makes no sense. I describe him as a religious fanatic. He's a religious fanatic towards his play style. And like you said, stubborn as an ox, he won't change. So my concern, because Canada, they're missing Bombito, and I think he completely changes their defense. Yes, Alphonso Davies is out, but you still lost to Guatemala. My concern is that Canada are going to actually be in a good situation, either in a knockout game or in a group stage game, must-win game at the World Cup. They got a 1-0 lead, or they're up 2-1. And instead of just bunkering down for the last 20 minutes and just seeing it through, Jesse Marsh is going to be like, full steam ahead, baby. And they're going to concede. That's my
You
concern now for
remember?
Canada.
I can't remember when it was. It was when Jesse Marsh was in charge of Salzburg, and he did the same to Bayern, and he got destroyed in the second half, like trying to press by play his own way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we saw him also try to do the same thing in the Premier League with Leeds. It's like I'm just going to go my own way, and that's what it's going to be. That's Jesse Marsh, and that's why he flames out. He's stubborn. He doesn't adapt, and he obviously gives the team a boost early on because he's a good public speaker and he motivates the players. But that can only take you
Mhm.
so far,
Mhm.
right? And even
It
the
is
Copa America
concerning.
run.
Yeah, it is concerning that you look at Leeds. Does that system work with Leeds? No. I'm not surprised it failed. You look at Salzburg in the Champions League. Am I surprised that failed? No. It's Salzburg in the Champions League. You can't play offensive ball. But Canada in the Gold Cup, and it still didn't work as clearly the second favorite for this Gold Cup. I do not care what Canadians say. You were clearly a top 2 favorite for this team, for this tournament. That's a huge eyebrow raiser, dude. Ancelotti style eyebrow raise. That is concerning.
Now, did Canada do that well in the Copa America
They took advantage of favorable circumstances, is how I would describe it.
in matchups?
hmm Red card against Chile. No, Peru gets a
They
red
had
card, I
two
think.
red cards in the group stage against the opponent. That led to one win and one draw. They lost to Argentina twice, as expected. They beat Venezuela on penalties, I believe,
Correct.
which again,
They
Canada,
were the better
Venezuela.
team, I think. But
Yeah, so
yeah.
Canada, even in the Copa America run, props to them because making it to the semifinals is no easy accomplishment. But there were things that happened that favored them along with the matchups, right?
Yeah.
I think all of that is important to add when we talk about, because it's very easy to say he took Canada to the semifinals of the Copa America. Congrats, major accomplishment. But if you look at it game by game, it was like things happen in their and these things can happen in these tournaments, right? These are
hmm
short tournaments, they're cups, but it is important to add that it wasn't like they made it to the semifinals to a point where you're like, nah, man, they're probably a top 4 team in the Americas, at least top 5. No, that's not how I ended a Copa America, right?
hmm I did think, okay, Canada at full strength is probably exact same level as the USA.
Yeah, the
That was the
starting 11,
takeaway
yeah,
I had.
yeah, it is, yeah, the
Yeah.
starting
I
11, yeah.
said, man, if they play like this, like these Mexico matchups are going to be tough. I think
But the
with
US got grouped. The
Canada,
US is not doing well.
yes, they got grouped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Panama. No, I do think in the Copa America, Canada's best games were all in the knockouts, though. Like and here's the thing, hear me out. This is a concern with Canada. And this is why I think Mexico doesn't get enough of the respect that we deserve at times. There are a lot of games, I think, where Canada are the better team, but they still fail to get the job done. Like Uruguay third place game. How they did not win that game, I don't even understand. They didn't even start Jonathan David in the game. He rotated his team for the third place game. They should have killed Uruguay. They had 30 chances. Uruguay sucked. They lose on pens. Against Guatemala, even, they should have gotten more than one goal before the red card. But Tejan Buchanan has a bad miss. Oluwaseyi sucked. Schaffelberg was terrible in the tournament. They only get one red card, blah, blah, blah. I think Canada, they lack that ability that Mexico has, where like when we're the better team, most of the time we tend to like still get it done. Still get a set piece goal or a penalty, or Raul Jimenez steps up and it's like, all right, it was ugly, but hey, we got it done type thing. With Canada, I think what I'm describing is softness. Like in a way, I think the team is maybe a little fragile,
It's
which
small
would
team
also
mentality.
explain.
That's what happens. That's pretty common even in global soccer, where sometimes you'll watch a game like I'm trying to think of a recent example. Club World Cup. There's a good example there. Palmeiras played Botafogo. Palmeiras is the bigger side. Botafogo honestly could have beat Palmeiras, but just because they're a smaller team, defend for their lives, even though they didn't have to, and they just don't have that belief that they're actually going to beat them. They just don't believe it, which is weird considering they beat PSG. But it's that small team mentality. It's like we can't do it anyway, so they just don't believe it. They don't
Which is
believe
why
they're.
they needed this Gold Cup so bad. Like they needed this Gold Cup more than Mexico did.
Mhm.
I
More
would
than
say
the
the only
US
team
too.
that
The US is at rock bottom right now. It doesn't. Yeah.
easily more than the USA. Nobody would have cared if you guys won. No one would have cared. I mean, the
No.
MLS shills would have cared. They would have been like, "This is why we're the
Ajimon
top
to the
program
world.
in the
Actually,
world."
if we won, Jack, I think it would have done irreparable damage to this team. Ajimon
That's
would be
that's
the starter for the World Cup.
yeah. Alex Freeman is locked in above Dest on the
Sebastian
depth chart.
Berholt.
Oh my god, dude! Luca De La Torre, a fraud nobody's talking about. Wow, that
No,
guy,
I put him on my
that
video
fall
as
off is
stock down. Stock
you
down.
you you did
Yeah.
fraud. I cannot believe how bad he was.
Oh, actually, now that you mentioned that, I recorded a video with Adam USMNT Stan on X, and we did stocks up, stocks down, and we had one player that we never want to see with the national team again, but we could not name Ajimon because that's too obvious. My pick was De La Torre.
Ooh, that's a great pick. No,
Hmm.
he's a scrub. He's a scrub.
Like, don't even dare.
Backwards passing merchant.
And
It's
he's
so bad.
regressed. He's regressed. So it's like, no, no.
How has he gotten so much worse? I don't
Um,
understand.
I told you, like the mentality. It's like it's funny because you talk to professional athletes, and I mean, I've talked to guys that played in U.S. soccer. I've talked to prospects, and I play with guys that have made it in like the Brazilian league, guys that played in the Premier League for years and made it Manchester United, teams like that. The big difference is here because the gap in terms of talent is not as big as people think at a professional level. Obviously,
Yeah.
besides the Messi's, Kevin De Bruyne, Salah's, Neymar's, that's a different breed of player. But the average professional player, even at a high level, it's different. But then the mentality is something that plays a role where you'll see guys whining about things they shouldn't be whining, or just like they don't have that mindset or grit to fight for it. And a lot of that has to do with the upbringing in the US and how the US soccer youth landscape is in terms of like it's mostly pay to play kids. They're mostly spoiled. I'm not saying Luca Del Torre is that specifically. I don't know what's his background, if he comes from a wealthy family or he struck. I don't know. I don't want to judge him on that. But we can all agree that probably like 90% of US soccer players are that. Right. And I've dealt with soccer dads in the US for years. It's complete nonsense. I've heard, if I tell you the stories, the things that I've heard of how they're like, the dad sees their kid as like Messi, and you're looking at that
Mm.
kid and you're like, maybe he can be a D3 college player, maybe. And then it's like, if he works hard, he can be Messi. And it's like, yeah, yeah. Maybe when he's 18, he can be as good as Messi when Messi was 7, maybe. But that affects the kid because then they just become like spoiled childs and they just don't work for it. And then daddy switches them to the next pay to play club where the coach will play him. I'm oversimplifying it, of course, but that is part of US soccer. And by part of it, I mean like 80, 90% of it.
How do you
Entitlement.
think other teams that will likely qualify for the World Cup, but they're not the hosts? I'm talking like Panama, Costa Rica, Jamaica, Guatemala.
Jamaica, they're going to make it?
Because their group is so freaking easy. God help them if they don't, dude. Have you seen their group?
Yeah, no,
Bermuda,
well, Guatemala, right?
Trinidad, and Curacao?
Guatemala, right? Concacaf World Cup qualifying.
No, dude. Jamaica has Curacao, Trinidad, and Bermuda. They got by far the easiest of the three groups. Not even close.
I mean, don't ever underestimate them to mess things up. But
Yeah.
I hope they make it. It's like I love their fan base. They're hilarious. They're great.
Funny as hell,
They're
man. So
insane.
good.
They're very much insane, but I love them. So if Jamaica makes it to the World Cup, I'll be very happy. They're a team I really want them to make to the World Cup. I just wouldn't bet on it because you never bet on Jamaica. You never do it.
What was the bigger L at the Gold Cup? Was it Panama, Canada, or Jamaica?
Oh, I think it has to be Canada.
Okay.
You don't
Who'd you
think
put
it's
second?
Canada? You don't
No, no,
think it's
no.
Canada?
I
You
want to
agree?
hear your ranking. Who'd you put second?
I'd say Panama. I just like Jamaica. What do you think of
Ooh, I
Jamaica
don't
these
know.
days?
Grouped at the Gold Cup.
But they I told you they were the only team that Pochettino looked good against. Like they
Grouped at
literally,
the Gold Cup.
I know, but Panama and Canada need to make a statement, right? At some point. And Panama losing to Mexico would have been acceptable. Losing prior to that to a Honduras side that lost to Canada 6-0. Jamaica, the thing with Jamaica is it depends on who you ask. I'm not a Jamaica fan, but I've been disappointed by them so many times. So many times over the
We
past
all
5
have.
years. that I don't really consider them like we talked about it. Pochettino's the U.S. men's national team under Pochettino has looked like complete crap in every single camp so far. No exceptions. Every game, they were terrible. The two Jamaica games made us believe that he was getting this team back on track. That's how bad they were. We actually started to believe, like, oh my God, we're looking great. And it's Jamaica. They're not that bad. Well, guess what? They are that bad. Well, they're not that bad on paper. They have the players to be a very good team. And even coaching wise, they've improved that. They've moved on from like Tapa Whitmore that they had that was freaking insane that he was even a professional coach for them. But I just
They
didn't.
peaked under Halgrimson, I think. I think him like during the like Copa America, that defensive style. Yeah, they got grouped there, but it was a hard ass group. They were never going to make it out. I think under Steve McLaren, man, I don't think he has a clue, to be honest, what to do with these players.
Might not
His
care, but
lineups.
it's just Jamaica. It's the man
But you
management
have to
part of it.
hold them to the standard that you cannot be getting grouped. You cannot be having 3 points in a Gold Cup, 2 L's in a group stage, and the one win you got against Guadeloupe, you fluked it. You absolutely fluked the win.
But for example, I think it was the 2023 Gold Cup where
Last one.
Jamaica was in the same group as the US. And the US for that Gold Cup that we lost to Panama, the team we brought was worse than this one. It was a really bad team. Like Jesus Ferreira was our best player. He
Yeah,
was our
that
best
team
player.
sucked.
It was
Yeah,
really bad.
yeah.
And then we were going to play Jamaica, and they had all the guys there. They had Mikel Antonio. I think Ethan Pinock was there. Bobby Reed. I think even Leon Bailey was still there. He like quit the national team after and came
Damari
back.
Gray, I think, debuted that
Yeah,
tournament.
yeah, all of that. So I was like, the first game we were going to play Jamaica. I remember I was in Brazil actually at the time doing the stream, and I was just like, oh crap, this is going to get ugly. Like if Jamaica really plays well, it's going to be 3-4-0 Jamaica against the US. And the game ended 1-1. It ended 1-1. That's when I realized I was like, Jamaica could have freaking Messi on the field, and I would still say, yeah, you guys ain't doing shit. It's not happening. The only time Jamaica qualified to the World Cup was in '98 with the Brazilian coach, René Simões. And I hate it because it's a fan
Of
base that I
course you
grew up
remember that.
like, what?
Of course you remember that.
Yeah, 1998 was when they made it, René Simões. And hopefully Jamaica qualifies to 2026. I really want them there. I just never bet on them. And you shouldn't bet on them. This is not betting advice, but just don't do it
Mm,
unless they're trying to burn money. Don't do it.
mm-mm. Yeah, you might as well donate to charity. Be money better spent. For what it's worth, I agree with you in the ranking. I would go Canada. It's the most damaging. Panama is a close second, in my opinion, because I think the Canadians have a little bit of an excuse with the red card. Just like a teeny tiny excuse. You still shouldn't have freaking lost, and it's still insanely embarrassing. But for Panama, you're 11v11 with Honduras. I thought Christensen made some terrible subs, and you're supposed to be not just the kings of Central America, but some people are saying like, "Oh, dude, they're right up there with Mexico and USA. Why couldn't they be the kings of Concacaf? If they win the Gold Cup, are they the best team? I mean, they keep making the final over and over again. It was
But
a
don't you
really bad
agree that
loss.
Panama has been seen as a team that has been punching above their weight for quite some time?
Yes, which is why I reject the narrative that Panama are like these bottled jobs, which I see on the internet. I don't know. Do you see that as much as I do?
No.
Yeah, they're like, oh, they bottled it in the Gold Cup final against Mexico. I mean, we
Yeah,
beat
they
them
didn't
1-0.
bottle it. I think they're punching above their weight. And obviously if you punch above your weight for long enough, you do pull like a trophy here and there. But
Yeah.
Panama should have beat Honduras. I
Yes.
just don't think that it's like a result that's like, holy crap, like how did this happen? It's not like Panama has a team that has an abundance of quality that they'll run
No.
over Honduras. So I mean,
No,
it's
they're
tough.
they're very thin as well, depth wise. So
I
without
think
Carrasquilla this tournament,
I think
it
what
was
happened
obvious.
with us thinking, at least for me, for you, anyone that thinks that Jamaica was a bigger disappointment, it just kind of depends on what you were expecting. I expected Panama to punch above their weight once again because they've been doing it for so long, consistently, right? Copa America, Gold Cup, Nations League. They've been doing it for long enough that I'm like, they're going to do it again. And they didn't do it. While Jamaica has been just screwing themselves over for so long that when it happens, that
Yeah.
like seriously, when they got grouped, I was like, well, I didn't expect this, but at the same time, I'm not surprised. You know, you get that feeling. It's like I didn't expect them to get grouped, but when they did get grouped, you're like, yeah. If there was one team that was gonna get grouped out of the big ones in Concacaf in the group stage, I would have picked Jamaica.
Yeah. The
Wouldn't
group
you?
is
Wouldn't
oh,
you have
yeah,
picked Jamaica? There you go.
absolutely. Because of the group as well. You're like,
And
Guatemala,
because of Jamaica.
sneaky. Yeah,
And
and
because of
because
Jamaica.
99% because of Jamaica, but also it's like